Hey guys, I want to share a brief message as we transition from the end of our 2025 season to the new 2026 season, which we're having tryouts for today. First, I want to recap a few highlights of the past season, and then I want to look forward and talk about some of my goals and plans for our group going into the next season. So, this past year, we started our season as soon as we started our club season as soon as the fall high school season ended in November. We started training a couple days a week as players were able to join us as their seasons ended, starting in November and continuing through December. We did a couple days a week outside on the Hickman lower fields. In January, we went inside and started training sessions inside at the MAC. One, we had like kind of a Friday night pickup game that we did. And then we had for maybe 4 or 5 weeks, we were having some indoor sessions at the MAC once or twice a week. And then we added some additional sessions with futsal at a couple of different basketball court places, the Columbia Fieldhouse and the Armory. And we really tried to have a full array of indoor training options, as many as 3 or 4 trainings per week, because there was a large group of players who were interested in doing all that. We also added some competitions on the weekends. So we entered some teams into the Sporting Futsal League with games at the Fieldhouse on I guess Sundays. And then we also entered on one weekend where the UCC has its Super Cup futsal tournament at the Link down in Jeff City. We showed our quality before, our spring season ever began. Our teams finished first in the futsal league in the high school brackets. And then in the Super Cup, we took first place in all 3 of the high school divisions of that Super Cup tournament. So that was a great way from a competition standpoint to kind of make our mark in the area and show, that we can play. We got a bunch of ballers in our group, frankly. Then in February, we went back outside. We started training again at the Hickman lower field. And then as we got into the spring season, we were training 3 days a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And many of the players in our group took advantage of these training opportunities. And those who were consistently coming 2, 3 days a week really saw, I think, a lot of progress throughout the year. We trained with a couple of different formations. We trained with some different ways of attacking, some different ways of defending, how to attack in different circumstances when a team maybe sits back, how to attack in some transition moments, how to defend with different shapes in the back line, different shapes in the midfield, different shapes with wide players or with a more narrow setup. And the guys that were paying attention really, I think, got a lot out of it. In terms of competition in that spring season, we competed as 4 different 11v11 teams playing in the Heartland League in Kansas City. We divided our groups into overlapping teams with Nero the Nero teams in the 2009 and 2010 divisions playing in the first division of Heartland League. And then we had a second team, the Azul team, playing in the third division of the same 2 age brackets. And in both age groups, we had a number of players that played on both Nero and Azul, and then just a handful of guys that were just Nero in each age group. The guys in the 09 age group that were just Nero were basically all guys that were playing on some other team. So we had a handful of guys that played like on the Aloof Hughes MLS Next team. And then although the experiment didn't work out perfectly, we had a few guys that also were playing with the Gunners team in St. Louis. That didn't go great. It was a kind of a lesson learned. And then those guys pretty much toward the end of the year just folded back in with our group and just competed with us because it didn't work out very well cooperating with Gunners. In the 2010 age group, there were a handful of guys that were just on Nero, and those guys were the ones that we called on the most often when the '09 teams needed support. Uh, so we gave, I think, lots of different playing opportunities where pretty much every player had an opportunity to play at a good level for them, and then a higher level also. So it's part of my philosophy that guys get to play in different environments, and you learn a lot by playing in those environments where sometimes you're counted on maybe as a starter, and other times you might come off the bench, and you have different roles and get good experience. So, in terms of our results in general, it was excellent. The 2009 Nero team finished in first place in first division. The 2010 Nero team, our results were pretty good. I think we were 5 wins, 3 losses, not bad at all. It did put us kind of in the middle of the table. The last loss at the end dropped us, I think, from third to fourth place. But overall, we had some good matches, and the matches that didn't go so well, I think, were important learning lessons, especially for how we have to defend as a team. And then if we don't convert in the attacking side, then we can get punished. So in terms of the 2000 or in terms of the Azul teams, both teams ended up winning their divisions, which puts them in line to get promoted to Division Two for next year. The 2010s honestly kind of rolled through their matches. 2009s had to struggle a bit more, and they did get some important support from 2010 players playing up with them, which helped us both in terms of depth as well as quality, and finishing and helping us score some goals. I would say overall the competition was pretty strong. It was overall pretty appropriate for our groups. There was some variation. We there were a few blowouts in both directions. The 10 Nero team did get blown out in one game, a game I didn't see but sounded pretty ugly. And then we blew out some teams. Pretty much all of our teams had a few blowouts, but we have to choose our leagues, and I can't remember any season in the last 5 years where there weren't some blowouts in any direction for any team. So every year we try to evaluate what is working best, what's the appropriate level for our group, and make decisions based on our experience. So then in terms of tournament play, we focused more on league play this year and a little bit less on tournaments, but we did some participation in tournaments. So the 2009 Azul team got into 2 tournaments. We tried to enter the 2010s also into the same tournament in the UCC tournament, but only the '09 team was accepted. So the '09 team entered in that tournament. It was in Jeff City, and they finished first. Then our '09 Azul team and our 2010 Nero team both played in the KC Invitational tournament. The 9 Azul team finished runners up in what was the second division, the red division, and had really strong competition and some tough matches there. And we finished second after beating the team that in the previous match. We faced them again in the final and came up a little short. The 2010 team, we entered them in the highest division and really wanted to test their level, really test them, see where we've reached. And the first game, we weren't quite ready, it seemed like, maybe for that level, but we adapted and got better throughout the weekend, nearly pulling off a result in the middle game, and then finally getting a fantastic result, beating the Nebraska Sting U16 MLS Next 2 team in that final match. We had to play differently from how we normally play, but we ended up, the guys bought in, and the coaches helped with the setup and the strategy, and the players on the field pulled off a great result, beating that MLS Next 2 team. The last tournament we played in was State Cup, and the 2009 Nero team entered. It was a great experience. I mean, a little frustrating in the end, but we went 3-0 in pool play, had some really fantastic performances, and had to make some adjustments due to injury as we went. We advanced to the semifinals, one of the few teams in the area that ever in mid-Missouri. If you look across like sporting teams, old select teams, UCC teams, rarely do mid-Missouri teams ever advance out of pool play. So a couple years ago, we went 2-1, which was fantastic. Just getting 2 wins in the pool play was really a great result. This year we got 3 and we advanced, and that was fantastic. We came up just a little short in the semifinals where we played the eventual champions. We were a little we were a little unlucky to have to face the wild card team, which in fact was the best other team, this St. Louis Development Academy U17 MLS Next 2 team. We knew going into the tournament they were the likely favorites because just a couple weeks ago they beat the Sporting City U17 MLS Next 2 team that is ranked #1 in the nation, and that won the MLS Next Cup out in Utah a couple weeks ago in the U17 Academy division. So we came up just a little bit short. They blew out the team in the finals, that we would have played had we advanced. And so I think the boys should really be proud of their result. We showed a lot of quality. Just I would redo a few decisions on my end. And I think had we not had one major injury that hurt us in the back line, I think things could have gone differently on a different day, and we could have come out on top. So I think we have a lot to be proud of with those results. I just want to finish up kind of the recap of the season. We also entered a couple teams, which we called my Blanco teams, in the Boonville 5v5 League, and it did provide some good reps for players who could really use that for developmental purposes. And in that sense, it was successful. But from a logistical and management point of view, it was pretty tough on us, tough on me, trying to consistently field a roster of players. As it turned out, several of the guys who had expressed interest, some were practice players, some were guys on the Azul teams. We expected them to play, or they expressed interest in playing, and then they were unavailable when we had the matches. So we were kind of scrambling to actually get enough players for some of those games. So that's something that we take forward with us, as something to strongly think about, making sure that how we set up our teams and what competitions we put in. We want to make sure that we always have enough players, and if for some reason we're short due to injury or whatever, we have another way to sort of fill it, and also make sure we have coaching coverage. So there's some of the things that we're thinking about as we move forward. What I want to talk about now, thinking about next season and our tryouts that are underway, that are starting. It started already today, but for our group, we'll have our tryouts later in the evening. We have to face a big change that's happening in youth soccer right now, which is this age group shift that is more or less going to a system based on grade rather than the calendar year. So what's happening is that now the new age groups start with an August 1st date. So somebody born on August 1st is now the oldest player in their age group, whereas before, if you were born on January 1st, you were the oldest player in your age group. And for the most part now, the guys that are rising seniors are going to be in the U18 age group. And then actually there's U19. And so that could include some guys that have already graduated high school, could be in U19. U18 and U19 compete together as U19. There isn't really a distinct U18 competition level in any competitions that I'm aware of. State Cup is U19, President's Cup is U19, even MADL League is U19, Heartland League is U19. There isn't really a distinct U18. And that's relevant because guys that, well, I'll come back to it. Um, so guys that are going to be seniors are for the most part U18. Most of the guys going to be juniors, with just a couple exceptions, are um, going to be a U17. And when I looked at our registrations for tryouts, we have a very small group of U18 players. Um, it includes a handful of guys that did participate in State Cup with us. Um, and then some other guys that were on the Azul team. In the end, those numbers are even if we put all of those guys together, those numbers would be insufficient to have a U18, U19 team. We didn't we haven't been very successful. I didn't attempt to recruit players from outside the club. I didn't make any special efforts to do that. That we sort of rely on players to bring other players in. And we just didn't have any registrations, or no one wrote expressing interest from outside the club in joining. So when you look at it, we had like 8 or 9 guys maybe who could play U18. Guys like my son and Rohan and Tahir, those guys have played in St. Louis. And then some other guys like Braden Watson have played in Kansas City. So in that oldest age group, we've sent some of our players away to compete at really high levels. This past year, we were lucky to be able to bring them back and work around some of their schedules and compete in Kansas City with some of their help. Going forward next year, we can't predict that those guys will be available for us. So the alternative, if we did want to field a team in that group, would be to push players up from the U17 age group into that U18, U19 age group. But when I looked at it, we were probably going to have to move up 10 to at least 10, and probably more like 15 players into an older age group. And for the longest time, anyone who would ever listen to me will know that I've told players that I believe you should play in the highest level you can within your age group. That's been my philosophy when I've taken my son to St. Louis, and some of his friends. We've tried to play at the highest level we can in their age group. There can be reasons to play in an older age group, especially for younger players if they develop they have early physical development, and you need to sort of take that away so that they keep building their technical skills and they can't just push the ball into space and run around people. They have to be a little bit more creative to beat players. But in general, I don't think playing up is ideal. It also limits kind of the ability, your ability to compete at the highest level. And yeah, so that's my perspective, and I looked at it. And so what I've been doing over the last couple days is I've been talking to the players who are several of the players who had registered for us and who were planning to try out for us. I've been talking to those U18 players to make sure they have a great landing spot and a great place to play for next season. And we have a huge number of players that are in the U17 age group. It's a mix of 2009s and 2010s. Um, and so my plan is to focus for our group on the U17 age group. We do have a few U16s in our group that are where it's absolutely appropriate based on those players' experience for them to come and play in the U17s. And then there's some other U16s that need to play in their age group as U16s, and we'll be clarifying that in the next couple of days. So that's my plan looking forward. I envision us competing as two U17 teams that play in the top division and in the second division. So kind of that Nero Azul approach. And both teams are going to be stacked of players. There will be internal competition to get onto that top team. That top team is going to be based around the returning '09 players who played in State Cup, and we had some fantastic performances and some game-changing moments by this is players like Landon, who scored a couple goals for us, Daniel, who was fantastic in the back line, Micah, who established himself as someone who the top attacking players just didn't beat him 1v1 this week, over the last 2 weeks. Chris is part of this group and is an absolute game changer. So, and then we had a couple, three 2010s who were able to play up with the '09s in State Cup and gain a really invaluable experience. So that's going to be the core of the top team. And then the second team is going to be full of guys that played as Nero and Azul this past year. And if we need to make cuts, or if there are guys that aren't ready for that second level to this like second division type level, those guys may just be training players or reserves with us, or we might ask them to maybe see if there's another option that's better for them, where they're able to compete at a level that's appropriate for them. So that's the plan going into next season. We want to continue several of the things that we did this year. I told the players, Coach Sinel and I, and Coach Numram also, we are obsessed with soccer, and we want players who are obsessed also, who really want to be their best, get the top level that they can, play all the time, who want to train 3 days a week. And if where even 3 days a week is not enough for them, they want to train as much as possible and get better and compete whenever they can. So so we're looking forward again to next season, in the off season, to get started as soon as the high school season ends. Of course, we'll work with players that are playing multiple sports and so on, provided that there's good communication between the players and the coaching staff. We'll work around those kinds of situations. We'll also work around, financial situations to make sure guys are able to compete kind of regardless of the financial situation that they're in. So thank you all for your interest. Thank you all for participating this past year. And I'm really looking forward and excited to see what next year might look like, with the possibility this approach that we've set up is really the one way that we can continue potentially competing in State Cup. And I think with our club in the 2012 group being the first in the whole region from Columbia or Jeff City, the first team from this area to win State Cup, I think it is really important for us, for our identity, to be a club, a group that is able to compete at that level. The groups that play in President's Cup, even though they have the talent to play in State Cup, to me shows that they're not really pushing their group, that they want to, they're sandbagging it a little bit. And yes, that is a criticism of our competing clubs in this area. They could put in teams in those higher divisions, but they haven't. And I think it's to the detriment of the players. I think it's to the detriment of the exposure that the players could get if they do want to play at a higher level. So I really want to push our guys as much as possible. I don't want us to get blown out. That's not the point. We don't want to do that. We want to be at the top and competing with the best. And I think we really can grow in that space. So thanks you all for listening, and we'll see you out on the pitch later tonight, or later this summer, or after the high school season ends. Thank you. Bye-bye.